Welcome to Diary of a Queen. This is our very first episode. I'm super excited to be here. I am joined by Sarah Swindell, all the way from Texas. And I am completely thrilled that she agreed to do this with me. I kind of had a list of like the people that I really wanted. I did a top 25 and kept on narrowing it down. And you were my number one person. You were the person that I wanted.
Something. I never win anything, and I won first place on your podcast.
Well, somehow you have won the Diary of a Queen podcast lottery. I'm not sure how that worked out.
I want a tiara, please.
Yeah. I would be happy to give you a podcast tiara. I'm not even quite sure what that would look like. But thank you so much for being here. I know you're super busy, and I'm glad you're taking the time to talk with us because I just absolutely know that everything that you've gone through in your life and how you live your life day to day is going to resonate with somebody. And the whole point of this podcast is for people to hear women from all over the country to give them some advice, maybe something that they're going through. They can hear it from somebody else. Because a lot of the times, we just don't talk about stuff. We're really great at wearing masks. And It's awesome to hear from some other people. And you and I have talked about this before, too, that nobody can put down another woman like a woman, but nobody can lift a woman like a woman. So today, and this show is all about lifting. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is your book. Miss Sarah is an author. We're going to give a little shout out. Yeah. I love it. This was such an incredible book. And I don't want to do any spoilers because I want people to be able to pick it up on for themselves. This is such a great story of love and betrayal, and it talks about your son and all of the things that you've got going on with your life. But the thing that I loved the most about this book was that I felt like Sarah and I were in like a little coffee shop or wine shop maybe, and we're just we were just having a little glass, and I looked at you and said, "Girl, what you got going on? Tell me about what's going on in your life." So it was very conversational. So tell me, what made you at this point in your life write a book?
Well, I felt like I think everybody has a story to tell. And that's what I love about people, especially women. Women are so complex. And, like you said earlier, we kind of look like we have it together all the time. But I always thought I had a story to tell. But over the years, the story kept changing, and I thought I had my ending and something else would happen. And if you read the book, you'll understand why. And, but when I finally did it, it was the perfect time, which you will also figure out if you read the book, to write it. And I wanted to write a story that really anyone could read, but everyone could identify even with a piece of it. Like you said, it's love, betrayal, heartbreak, challenges with teenage girls. And, the bulk of it is about what I have a son diagnosed with severe autism as a baby, and kind of what that autism diagnosis did to our entire family. And that's kind of where the story begins, sort of. But back in the day when my son was diagnosed, there wasn't any stories about what it's really like to have a severely disabled child. And my husband and I were not prepared at all for what it would do to us, our marriage, our kids. And it's also kind of a messy love story. There's really even if you're a sports fan, my husband was an professional baseball player. So there's sports stuff, there's love, there's, you'll laugh, you'll cry. And it was important that it sounded, just like you said, like I was sitting with you talking. So I'm glad that you noticed that, because that was my goal.
I think it's really difficult sometimes as, a wife, a mom, a a person. It's just busy. Life is so busy. And it's hard sometimes to sit down and connect with a book, take the time to actually read a book. I was so happy that I did, because I really felt like I got to know you better and understand some of the struggles and things that you go with. So you talk a lot about Dawson, your son, Dawson, who is nonverbal. And, at this point now, he's a man, know, and what your day to day must look like now. So for everybody that's watching, run me through what your day looks like with Dawson. And I know it's different every day.
Oh, it is.
We've got good days and bad days, just like everybody else. So run me through what your day looks like.
Well, now that Dawson is no longer a child or a baby, he's a 6'4", 200 and almost 70-pound grown man. And so there's that to kind of contend with, but he's severe in the sense that we do need to do everything for him. Get him dressed, brush his teeth. We have to shave him. We have to wipe his butt. Like, we've got to do all those things that make his food. I mean, he's like having a baby forever. And most women my age are empty nesters right now. And that's never going to happen to us, happen for us, which is fine. But so there's that. But now we're kind of used to it. But like last week was a terrible week. It was a lot of crying and not sleeping, and we don't know how to help him because he can't tell us. And then all of a sudden he'll snap out of it. So he definitely keeps us on our toes, and we laugh a lot. We sometimes cry because it's sad, and it's, we talk about it's a little bit controversial, and I hope I don't make anyone mad, but, he is a vaccine injured baby. And, there's always that, what if I would have delayed shots? What if I would have, not done it? My gut told me not to do it that day, and I did it. So I have that guilt that I killed him, so to speak, that I stole his life from him. And it's a terrible guilt to have, so there's a lot of that, but I try not to go down that path as much as I possibly can. So we tend to laugh more than let it get to us too much.
Well, we tend to, as women, I think guilt is just something you never think you're doing enough. You never think you're doing the right thing. And not never, but it's often. And we tend to be our own biggest critics.
Yep.
And I'm sure, on the day-to-day basis with Dawson, do you look into the future? And I mean, what does that look like for Dawson? What does the future look like for Dawson? And how does that play in your emotions? I think talking about guilt will help people understand, ooh, I'm feeling that way. I know that feeling. So what does that future look like, and how does guilt play a role in your day-to-day, if it does at all?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I think any parents of special needs kids, the biggest thing you worry about is what happens when we die. Thankfully, we have 3 grown daughters that are more than willing to care for him. So we are so lucky. Not that but then there's that guilt. I don't want them to have to be responsible for him. But they all fight over who's going to get him. So, but you have to make sure there's enough finances for him, because I don't want them to have to worry about that. You just worry about things that you worry about with your typical kids. It's just a little bit more that it's a forever thing. Like, he's not going to grow up and marry and have his own family. We're going to be responsible for him for the rest of his life, however long that may be. His life expectancy is probably shorter than a normal life expectancy. He has other health issues going on. And we're also okay with whatever the plan is for him, as long as he's comfortable. That's our goal anymore. It's just to, for years it was, I'm going to fix him. He's going to lose the diagnosis. But once we let that go, it was like the world was off our shoulders. And our only job now is to love him and to keep him clean and as happy as possible. And that's really we try not to look too far in the future because it scares me. I don't want to think about we're going to get old and we're not going to be able to care for this very large son of ours. So, it's best if we just don't even think about it because there's nothing, we can't dwell on it. That's never good.
There's a great peace I feel in letting go. And just knowing that what will be, and you have to take things a day at a time. Because there's really, like you said, there's nothing really you can do about it. And I've heard you say that before, that for a while you were looking at ways of fixing him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure any parent that has gone through any diagnoses, that's for their child, especially even themselves, you're looking, what's the answer? What's the answer?
You're Googling, what am I going to,
Right. And it's so hard to just go, maybe there isn't. An answer. The answer is love and is caring. And that's really, the end of the story. So I applaud you for that, because I feel like there's a lot of people that may never get to that space. They'll always be chasing something. And that's, just makes for a difficulty. And you talk about that in your book. And I'm sure people that are watching can imagine what kind of strain this puts on a marriage. Yeah. And so even now, what do you and your husband do to steal quiet moments away just for the two of you? Because at the end of the day, you have to nurture your own relationship as well. So what do you guys do to nurture what you've got and your relationship?
Well, and if you read the book, you'll see we screwed it up pretty good the first time around. So, just a little spoiler, we did end up getting divorced after 17 years, but then we were apart for 9 years and we remarried 5 years ago. So not that I recommend everyone divorce their husbands and remarry, but I think we learned so much being apart. Not only did we realize our love was real and true, and trust me, I tried really hard to find another one, and nothing was like Greg. Nobody was like Greg. He was my, it's corny, but he's my soulmate. And I think when you go through trauma with someone, it can either tear you apart or it can make you stronger. And I think it did both. It initially tore us apart, but now I think because we got that second chance, the little things that, we would fight over, or the things that we thought were so traumatic back then, we're like, I can't believe, we let it get as bad as it got. And I talk a lot about sleep deprivation, I think. And I wrote this, and I get chill bumps because I still feel that way. It's like you have a newborn baby for the rest of your life because you don't sleep. And now I'm used to it. But, when you have that new baby and you're in that fog and you're just like, where am I? And you're driving down the road and you don't even know where you're going. And that's you're constantly exhausted and you're sad. And it's like you're mourning a death, but there's no death. It's the death of your child, but there's no funeral. There's no, so, but I think we learned a lot of what not to do the second time around. And it's amazing now. And now that, we sneak away, a lot in our little neighborhood. We can leave him home alone when he's asleep. Thank goodness for cameras now. So we can go up the street to dinner. And so that's been a lifesaver.
So you have other children.
Yes.
And beautiful girls. What kind of impact did Dawson have? Because if you're a mom and you're having to care for this perpetual newborn, what is that like, raising 3 other children and still dealing with Dawson? I'm sure there's a guilt that even comes along with that. Am I giving enough time to the other children as I am, to Dawson? How did that play out?
They're such amazing girls. And, like one of them is a special ed teacher because of him. And they're all I know they suffered, but they never let me, and they all had their own struggles. I think we all went different directions with the everything that happened, because there's a lot that happened. And but now it's he has touched so many lives, including we're all softer people now. We're all very forgiving. We're patient. We don't get too stressed about much anymore. But I did, for them growing up, there wasn't sleepovers. There wasn't big birthday parties because he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the noise. And it's because he would just come out naked. So, I mean, you just never know. Like, it was like, you never know what's going to happen. So but if it bothered them, they're amazing. They never said it did.
And I think that's so incredible, that your daughters have been able to embrace that lifestyle. And don't you think it's so funny, the one person in your family that can't talk impacted so many lives and so many people. I will tell you, I find myself often thinking about Dawson. And,
we chat a lot about, you ask me stuff about kid stuff. And
right. And I mean, but I just think that that's so incredible. Maybe there is a lot of truth to the, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. And in his case, not a voice, right? And such impact. Yeah. So, I know that Dawson feels that love, and it is my wish and hope and prayer that he understands, what he has done. I feel that he has, in a way, don't you?
When his sisters come over, he lights up. Like, he won't let me touch him. Rarely.
You're not important anymore.
It kind of makes me mad because his sisters will come over and he's all over them, and he just pushes me away. But he is a 21-year-old man that's probably tired of us as much as we are. Right.
So what do programs look like for him? Because I know up until a certain time he was in a school-like program. So are there things that he can do now? I don't know what it's like in the state of Texas. It's probably different than it is in the state of North Carolina. If you can even maybe just give a little bit of advice of where somebody could start, because there is an expiration date to what they can do as far as the state goes and everything like that. So what kind of advice can you give, and what does that look like?
Each state is so different. Texas, unfortunately, ranks at the bottom for services. We're still on a wait list to get services after 16, almost 17 years. So we might have another year left before we can get some state help, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's not enough. I think the statistic, it costs about $3 million to raise a special needs child, with medical, schools, therapies, all the, long-term care. It's a lot. And you still have to take care of yourself in retirement. So we're ready to have any help we can get. But states like Arizona, California, as long as you have a diagnosis, you get services immediately. So a lot of parents move. We don't want to, because all of our grandchildren are in Texas. But after, and this is in every state, after 21, then you're kind of on your own. You could stay in school till you're 21. And after that, you're done. So he goes to a day hab, which he loves. It's a little house, and there's like 10 or 12 little classmates, and they're all just, doing their thing, and they do little field trips, and it's like an adult daycare. So, and he loves it. So there is life after school, which sometimes I feel like it's easier because it's year round. You don't have those dreaded summers, right. Which with typical kids, I'm like, summer's too long. But so that's good. So there are places after the age of 21 that you can go to.
And I know you're super busy, but the one thing, since this is all about women and how we can empower each other and how we can lift each other up by telling our stories. What is something you do for Sarah? What is something that you do that, gives you a break, just even if it's for a moment?
Well, I do love a good tour around Home Goods. So that's kind of my happy place. And nothing like a really good pedicure. And that's kind of my indulgence. That's just kind of, the older I get, the less I want, or a nice dinner out with my husband, or, a little, tootle around the lake on our pontoon boat. Little things like that is what we need at this point. But, and also good. And we talked about girlfriends. And I think you might agree, the older we get, you kind of weed out women that you realize aren't good for you anymore. And then
right.
You really bring in the women that fill your soul, that understand where you're coming from without judgment. And those are the people that I like to spend my free time with, that aren't afraid to share their messy stories, that life isn't perfect, or, maybe their kid is going to beauty school instead of Harvard. There's nothing wrong with either one of those things, So it's a nice time in life where I just don't really care anymore about things I used to.
I love what you said, that people just share their messy lives because it's messy,
Those are my kind of people. Yeah.
But those are my kind of people too. Yes. But what's so great about the mess is there's always a message, right? There's always a message in the mess, always. And we can learn so much from each other. Yeah. So, with that, I would love for you, in your experience in life, in marriage, as an author, as the mother of a special needs child, what's one piece of advice that you could give to another woman that, could help them in their daily lives?
I think the most important thing that has just, and it's also cliche, is forgiveness. It's forgiveness for maybe someone who has wronged you, or forgiveness for yourself for making mistakes along the way. And once you can just going back and dwelling on your mistakes doesn't do any, you can't change them. But if you learn from them, that's why mistakes are awesome, because, okay, that wasn't a good choice. I'm not going to do that again. And that's wisdom when you get older. Like, that's the beauty of getting older, is you're gaining wisdom. When you're young and you're newly married and a mom, it's like one mistake after another, because that's the only way to learn.
And I try to instill that in my kids too, that making mistakes is a beautiful blessing, because you get the opportunity to learn. If you don't ever make any mistakes, nothing ever changes. Right. And there's no way to go to the next level and become the better version of you. I have a great saying that somebody told me years ago that I always tell my kids in the morning. I'm like, today is an amazing day. It's way better than yesterday. Not quite as good as tomorrow, but today is a day that you can make something happen. And today you made something happen. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for spending time with me. And I want to remind everybody to pick up Rounding Home. Where can they get this book at? Remind everybody where they can get this book.
Barnes & Noble. It's everywhere. And if you're not a reader, I'm the narrator of the Audible. I'm an Audible book person because I like to listen in the car on long car rides or walking. So I appreciate it. And I hope everyone likes it. There's something for everyone. And I want to thank you for, starting this new adventure in your life and making changes for women. And just, it's scary to start something new. And you're just like taking it on. And I can't wait to see our bloopers someday when we, when we look back when you're.
But for those that are watching it, there were quite a few. We had technical difficulties. We had internet connection issues. We had all kinds of things. But life is messy, right? It's not meant to be perfect. You don't learn anything from perfect, and nothing is perfect anyway. Sarah, thank you so much. I am thrilled and honored for you to be my first guest, and I can't begin to tell you how much your life impacts other people, how important and worthy you are, and the work that you do in the world of autism and putting out this book has touched and impacted many people's lives. Thank you for being you.
Thank you, and congratulations on your new adventure. And I can't wait for more of your episodes.
Thank you.